So welcome to Alexandra Joy TV. With me today, I'm honored to be with Patricia Albere. Patricia is the founder of the Evolutionary collective, and it is an internationally recognized spiritual teacher. Her journey started in 1971, and probably before then, right?
Yeah.
But specifically in 1971, when she was very, very young, and she unknowingly found herself at the leading edge of the human potential movement, working as an original staff member of the EST organization, which is currently known as the Landmark Education Group. By age 33, she had left EST and became a highly revered public speaker, transformational teacher, and workshop leader. Over the span of 40 years, she has taught from being finely attuned to the transformational power of emergence. So we're going to talk about that today. Her work with the collective consciousness has been developed through continuous work with groups which include touching and inspiring over 150,000 people internationally. On a personal note, I have known Patricia for over 30 years, which makes us very young when we first met.
That's true.
And she's been an incredible guide, coach, and teacher for me, for which I am extremely grateful. And she's always been an inspiration to me and to everyone that I know that you've touched, and to humanity, I would say. Especially with what she's up to now on the planet, which we're also going to get into. So today, specifically, we're going to be talking about Patricia's personal journey as a passionate warrior, I'm going to call her warrior, in the realms of transformation and spirituality. We're going to unpack certain distinctions like the evolutionary impulse, the evolutionary collective, what is creating possibility and breakthroughs inside of a collective, and what is teaching and coaching. And then lastly, we are going to unpack her passion behind the Evolutionary collective, and that is a specific group that Patricia has founded that we'll get very, very into. And that is about creating a new paradigm for human relatedness, the we space specifically. Mm-hmm. So thank you for giving me your time and energy today.
Yeah.
To start off with, given that you started at such a young age on the path, in the journey, on the spiritual search, why? Why did you start? Why, from your perspective, did you start at such a young age?
Ultimately, I don't know. Mm-hmm. But I think from just a developmental standpoint, I had the good fortune of having a very sane childhood. So I had nice parents, I was relatively attractive, I was relatively smart. I wasn't struggling with anything in particular. And so for me, when I was 15 and I looked at my parents' life and I looked at my brother, and we lived in an upper middle class to wealthy community, and I had a boyfriend, and I had all the things that you're supposed to have. I thought, what, you do this for another 70 years? I just couldn't get that was the purpose of life.
You mean like living in neighborhood, getting married, having kids, working 9 to 5, coming home, that kind of life, right?
Yeah, and I had, parents. My dad was very successful. He really felt successful. He was really good at the things that he cared about. And my mom loved being a mom, and she was happy with her life. So, I saw people that weren't crazy or struggling. They were fulfilled. And I just thought, I can't imagine just doing this for the next 70 years. There's got to be something more. And I made a poster at the time, because this was, 1968 maybe, when I was 15. And I made this poster with this girl with these billows of colors coming out of her eyes. It was this very psychedelic kind of thing. And I wrote across the top, there must be something else. Those were the bold letter, the words on it. And I just felt like, what else is there? And I had a realization. I remember sitting in the sunroom in our house. We had this old English tutor house, and I had this revelation. I have no idea where it came from or why, but I thought I had to make a choice as to whether or not I was going to follow the path of my mom, like where she was very protected and she had a successful life as she was, or there was something else, and I didn't know what the something else was. And I was sitting there and I thought, I have to decide. And I had no idea why I was doing it. And I decided the something else. And then
you decided something else.
I thought I decided for the something else. Whatever else there was, that was what I wanted. Huh. And then literally less than 3 years later, I was with Werner Erhard before it was even S, way before it was Landmark.
That's so interesting because a lot of people write about the struggle of the dysfunction in childhood, creating the opportunity for the search, the beginning of the journey.
Right.
And so it's really interesting that you're sharing from it that it wasn't that. It was actually like pure you choosing.
Yeah, it was.
Life-choosing.
There was something not in the way.
Interesting.
And I think that, and there was nothing for me to get caught on, because I think I could have, because I can get very worked up about things not being fair, and, so I think if I'd been of a minority group, do you know what I mean, if I'd had some ethnicity that I was struggling against, or, the way I was being treated as a woman was a problem, which it wasn't. Not
or
even with
addiction
Werner.
in your parents, or something.
But I could have gotten busy with
Right.
some other fight.
Right.
But there was nothing. I mean, I didn't have anything to get caught on. So the universe started pulling me. I mean, I went to Woodstock shortly after I had that realization, when I was early 15, and by 15 and a half, Woodstock had happened, and I didn't know why I wanted to be there.
Yeah, you write, Patricia
so
writes
funny.
a great blog about that on her evolutionary.com, collective.com
Right.
site, a blog about you going to Woodstock. It's really
But
great.
it wasn't, you don't know, like that's when something else starts to take you. And for the most part, my journey has been more of not knowing why I'm following something, and then having some amazing experience, and then finding out later the significance of it, or how to then share it with people. So, and everybody's different. Some people kind of know what's going on, and then they have some experience and they have a context for it. I almost never have the context for it first.
So I was going to talk about
Yeah.
this later. I was going to ask you about this
Yeah.
later. So let's just go there right now, because what I've heard about the definition of the evolutionary impulse is kind of what you're describing. So can you give the
interesting.
definition of evolutionary impulse in your words? Because it sounds similar.
Well, there's a dynamism in life. There's some dynamic, energetic movement that's moving everything. I mean, even if you think about just nature, you can watch plants grow, and you have children. So you watch them evolving, like what's moving that evolvement? There's something moving things.
I remember something I watched Wayne Dyer say, in, I don't know, Power of Intention or some talk, and he was saying, you don't, while you're pregnant, tell, the toe to grow, tell the fetus, okay, now grow the toe.
Right.
He's talking about intentionality from a universal perspective.
Yeah, there's something larger that's really happening. And I think particularly, as a woman, you feel that, all of a sudden something's taken over, and you're like, okay, I guess I need to go with this and support it and facilitate it. But in a consciousness standpoint, there's this energy, there's a dynamism. You can call it the optimizing force, or you can call it eros. Not erotic necessarily, but eros as in this dynamism of life and energy and love.
So is that the same as the impulse, the evolutionary impulse? So
same thing.
you would say eros, evolutionary impulse, dynamism. Can't say it.
Dynamism and an optimizing force.
Optimizing force.
Yeah.
Okay,
Which is
great.
another way to say it. That when you turn towards it, it will move and show up and unfold powerfully. Usually what's in the way is egoic tendencies, defenses, strong ideas, beliefs about how things are, your agenda that you're trying to force into existence. And all of that displaces the power of that. And somehow, I don't know, I think I just had a relationship with it because I was, I think, a little less interfered with, because of my childhood wasn't, particularly
Something you had to get
displacive.
over. Or learn
Yeah, I mean, there were
stuff
things to get over, but there wasn't anything gross to get over, anything that was really a big thing that I had to recover from.
So just in terms of that, what would you say to the people who do or did have something really profound in their childhood to get over? How do they access the evolutionary impulse the way that you're saying?
Well, I think it's different for everyone. I mean, for some people and the journey, sometimes they have gone so far into hell, into such a difficult place, that they're rendered more open and humble. And humility is a direct access point to the dynamism.
To the evolutionary impulse, to
Totally. Yeah. I mean, a lot of times when people are really, they feel like they've been pummeled by life, and they get to a point where they really let go and they open, and they're more fragile and more open and more humble.
Right. Takes a
Then-
lot for some people.
Yeah, and everyone has a different journey. I mean, I think there's one of the things I've come to understand is that people are so unique and they're so different that you have to really honor and respect each person's journey. There's no cookie cutter method that's correct for anybody, ever.
So
Yeah.
along those lines, you've always been a maverick. I would call you a maverick in the space of personal development, the human potential movement.
Right.
Why do you think that is? What in you, besides the impulse? Like, you've always been drawn, and I know you call it the edge.
Yeah. It may be partly, like from a soul level, I don't know, why that's so strong. I know that it's in my DNA to some degree. So I'm on my dad's side, they came in the 1600s to America. So they were French Huguenots and Quakers, and so they were coming to America in order to have the freedom to believe what they wanted to believe, and they had the courage to get on a boat and do that. So, whoever they are, there's a certain amount of that's in me. There's even some of them, they developed a car back at the time when Ford was creating cars.
There's your family?
There's a Duryea car, which is my middle name, which is fairly hysterical. So, there's some DNA in there of,
Right, like
okay,
entrepreneurial,
where is it? And, and willing to go to where some freedom is, or some possibility, some new possibility.
Right.
And they fought in the revolution and, whatever. And the other side of the family, they came over just before Gettysburg. They fought in Gettysburg. So there's some early American, and I think Americans have that relationship to the dynamism in particular.
Interesting.
I do think that there's some Western movement or impulse that accesses it from one place. I don't know how to say that, but accesses it from a certain place. I don't understand from an Eastern side. There's a different way in.
Right.
For sure.
Right, more meditating on the mountaintop, or right.
Yeah.
So it's interesting you went to courage, because I was going to ask you about courage, because obviously you had and have a lot of courage
To do that.
to do what you've done at 16.
Right.
You've shifted from my relationship with you, hugely in
Numerous
your life,
times,
numerous
yeah.
times,
Right.
along with the tracking of how the personal development movement has gone.
Right.
So you think courage is a key component?
It hasn't felt courageous. So I'll go back to that edge conversation. Is one of the things I learned later, which gave me a context, which I think might be an appropriate thing to share with people, is that thing of different kinds of where your focus is. So egocentric means that you're focused on yourself. Ethnocentric is the next one up, which is the natural focus on your family, on the people that are close to you, and caring about that and being busy with that and putting your energy into that. The next level is world-centric, which is people that start to identify and feel this concern for the world. So they love their family, they care about themselves, but their energy is around, like, what does the world need? And you can tell because they spend time and energy making a difference in the world and caring about those various things. For me, I didn't realize there was another one, which is cosmocentric. And cosmocentric means that what you're focused on is the edge of where consciousness wants to go. And I think a lot of creative people have that. Like, there are creative people in music, there are creative people in art, there are creative people in technology. They want to be where the new possibilities are. Like, that's what drives them. So it's not courage to be on the edge. It's kind of like they can't help themselves. So there are scientists that want to discover what they need to discover to help the world. They're more world-centric. They want to discover new things so that they can actually make a difference in their discoveries in the world and help the world and da-da-da. The cosmocentric people, they just want to be where the new discoveries are. And then other people take them and make them into something. You know, there are artists that they want to be where the new kind of art is, not just an extension of what's already been happening.
So
there's
those people in the face of adversity or objection, you know, like the artist who's told they're a fool for doing it that way.
Right.
What is it the dynamism that's pulling them? It's not
them.
courage.
I don't know if it's courage. I mean, experientially, it doesn't feel like courage. It just feels like I have to do this.
Like no choice.
Like you just got to do it. Even if you're questioning yourself. I mean, there were times when I started this, you know, in working in this collective way, which nobody was hardly talking about, you know, when I started this almost 7.5 years ago. You know, there was no we space, or, you know, very few people were speaking about that. And mostly the people that I know that are teachers of you know, doing individual work, they were like, it doesn't make sense, Patricia, and what value are people going to get out of this? And you have to speak to it in a certain way. And I was just going, I can't even address that, because it's a very different phenomenon. And it wasn't courage, it was just like, I can't not try, I have to make this happen. It's choiceless. There's a part that's choiceless, where it's got you. And in a way, like one of the things that I see in the Evolutionary Collective and the people that are surrendering more and more to the consciousness of what this is you start to surrender, and then something starts to take you. And you feel more choiceless in it. And then being a visionary, being pulled by the future, and seeing the future and being pregnant for the future. I mean, you feel like something you can see that the rest of the world isn't seeing.
Like the created future pulling you.
It's pulling you.
Versus you, the little engine that could.
Yeah. Making something happen, or having a vision and trying to make your vision happen.
Which is one of my specific questions about that, because I work with people.
Yeah, totally.
You work with people and have worked with people for many years, you know, vision, mission, purpose, you know, and that's, so I call it the orienting principles. Like if you don't have some of that defined, you can be kind of wandering around purposeless, you know, and then bash up against life, you know, and this happening and that happening and wonder why. But when people get clear, including, you know, when I got clear, like life was like, you know, like when it clicked in, like just the perfect machine kind of. It doesn't mean that it sometimes doesn't break down and you've got to overcome. But what I find in our work that I've done together and I've done with you is that it's very different when you tune into what you're talking about, the impulse, the dynamism, even though I keep having a problem with saying that word, and access vision, mission, and purpose from that space. And I don't even know how to, I know it when it's happening with someone, but if you can talk about that, because it's different. It's a very different than doing it from the personal development kind of 10 years ago place.
Right.
Like goals. I'm going to do my 10 top goals. And I must say that stuff is great, but it's different accessing from
here.
Yeah. So.
Well, the development is important. So always everything depends on being developed at the stage before.
Like a staircase.
Period. Yeah, you just can't skip steps. Just like if you know, we wanted to be really great at music, we'd have to learn what we need to learn about the, you know, reading the notes and playing the tuba or whatever it is. I mean, you can't just go into
modern dance,
complete creativity without having those steps. So, and it's the same thing in my experience with people's lives. So, to pull away from the reactivity and the automaticity of the ego, which is just going to kind of do whatever it's going to do, you need to be able to be self-authoring. You need to go, okay, what are my goals, or what do I care about, or why am I doing this, and do I really want that? And, you know, make those choices and decisions, and then be able to pull out of the automatic ways of being, so that you go
in human beingness.
Yeah, and then you have breakthroughs. You feel like, oh my God, this is a life I didn't have any idea I could have. I love this. This is amazing. I can do this. And you feel this incredible sense of expansion and joy.
And cause in the matter.
Yeah. Yeah, and ways of being with people and going to see your family at Thanksgiving and not just being the way you normally are, and discovering that, you know.
We've all had our Thanksgiving.
Yeah, you can in fact be different. And I mean, that's critically important and continues to be. You know, in the places where you're pulled a certain way, it's useful to know that you have some choice in the matter.